there, I'm Maggie Kelly, the Communications Director for the Estacada School District, and I'm joined here today by our Operations Director, Mike Ware, and we're going to be going through a little bit about our safety protocols as we head back to school. So, Mike, could you tell us a little bit, what are the goals of having these protocols and plans in place as we go back to school?
Sure, Maggie, thank you. First and foremost, we want to ensure compliance with state and federal mandates that school districts have to follow. But in addition, we want to ensure the safety of our students and staff and avoid any disruption in schools and in-person learning.
Okay, and what are some of the main things that we have in place as our strategies for reducing the spread of COVID-19 in our schools?
Main mitigation strategies are face coverings, frequent hand washing, and proper hand hygiene. We also implement physical distancing and our contact tracking, in addition to pre-screening questionnaires prior to arriving to school and to work.
Okay, so pretty thorough, and some people have explained it as the Swiss cheese approach. We have a lot of layers to block all these holes, and I like also how you mentioned that our main goal is just to keep our schools open. So could you talk to me a little bit about some of these things more in depth? I noticed we have this card scanner right here. Why do we have this, and how does that work?
Yeah, so our card scanner system is contact tracking. I want to be clear, it's not contact tracing. We're tracking individuals, our students at the secondary level, and our employees throughout the district on their whereabouts. So if we have a confirmed case where we need to investigate, we can watch and see where these students and staff are at throughout the day to properly inform them and quarantine individuals when need to.
So our middle and high school students just scan in when they come into a classroom?
They scan in and scan out, same with our employees. At the elementary level, our employees are the only ones that scan in and scan out. We track our younger students a little bit differently because of just the method of doing it.
Yeah, and elementary students aren't roaming hopefully quite as much as our middle and high school students that have multiple classes, so that makes sense. What about face coverings? What is the face covering protocol this year?
It's changed quite a bit, as we know, over the summer. Right now, as it stands, face coverings are required while indoors during school hours. Some exceptions do apply while students are outside participating in recess, PE, extracurricular activities, and as sporting events. So any school-sponsored sanctioned event, athletes are not required to wear face coverings.
And that'll be nice. We get a little bit of a mask break during recess, and then if they're in a strenuous activity, they can breathe a little bit more freely without those masks. So that is helpful, but it seems like a lot of things are very similar to last year. Another big one that we had last year is quarantining. What does quarantining look like? How do we go about that process?
Yeah, quarantining is very similar to last year. We've changed the timeline, or local public health has changed the timeline a couple different times. And if you recall, we were in the early fall last year was 10 days quarantine, and then it got moved to 14 days. We are now back to 10 days quarantine for an individual who comes in close contact. The caveat is if a student or a person lives with a confirmed case, now that jumps up to 20 days, unless that individual is fully isolated outside of that home. So there's some case-by-case scenarios that we have to go through when we investigate, and we have to inform someone of have to go into quarantine.
Okay, and I like this contact tracking method that we can quickly identify who is quarantined and contact them. That comes in handy, and we saw that a lot last year as well. I know another thing we talked about last year was social distancing. Where are we at on that one as well?
We're now at 3 feet social distancing for our students, and we are striving to maintain that when teaching and learning isn't impacted inside our schools. So 3 feet is what our standard is, and what we're going to be maintaining as best we can.
Yeah, and there are times where we might not be able to maintain it perfectly because we are having all students back on campus this year, which is really exciting. But I think our staff do a pretty best-in-class job of gently reminding students and teaching them how to stay safe in this new environment. One of my last couple of questions is transportation. What does that look like? Are there rules on the bus? Are the buses fully operative?
Yeah, buses are going to be fully operable this year. And again, the rules are very similar to indoor facilities. But we want to make sure that our students are safe. So we'll be wearing face coverings just like we are in the schools, trying to maintain our distancing as best we can, that airflow and ventilation with windows being open, and making sure our students are healthy and coming to school.
Okay, and my last question, I know we all have the same goal of keeping our kids in school full time. It's so important to have them back on campus, and we're really excited to have them back. So what can families at home that want to support this, what can they do to help keep our schools open?
Yeah, we ask that you work with your student or your child on reinforcing our safety protocols and practices when they come to school, whether it's face coverings, physical distancing, proper hand hygiene and other hygiene practices, and completing that pre-screening questionnaire. Those are all strategies that help us keep everyone else safe and avoid closing down our schools.
And I know you mentioned the pre-screening, so we will still be doing the pre-screening this year. When should families keep their students home? When should they not be sending them to school if they're not feeling well?
Yeah, if the student's not feeling well, we ask that you do keep your child home at all times. You know, if it's related to COVID or symptoms that are related to COVID, we want to ask you to make sure that your student stays home with 24 hours free of a fever and symptoms improve. If you decide to go get tested or bring your child to get tested, then we take the next step if it is positive, and we ask you to contact your school and follow guidance from your provider immediately.
And I know you mentioned testing. We have rapid tests available on our campus, which is a great tool if staff and students are experiencing symptoms when they are on campus. What is the protocol and procedures for that? When do we use those?
First and foremost, we have to have parent permission to use those on any student during the school day. But our protocols is if we are noticing a student or an adult experiencing symptoms, we bring them to a care room and evaluate them further from our CNA or our registered nurse. If a test is administered, it is self-administered, but again, we need that parent permission. It takes about 15 minutes to evaluate and get the results. And no matter the case, whether it's a positive or it's a negative, we will be sending that student home. Obviously, a positive case has some different workflow processes and approaches that we would take. But again, if it's a negative, student may be still experiencing symptoms, so we would send them home until they're symptom-free or improved to return to school.
Well, I appreciate you walking us through these safety protocols, and I hope families know that we are taking every precaution possible to keep our schools open, and I hope you'll join us in helping us keep our doors open and our students safe this upcoming year. Thanks for joining me, Mike.
Thank you.